I was lucky enough to go to Geauga Lake countless times up until its closure in 2007. Much has been said about Geauga Lake, but let's rank the coasters from someone who's actually ridden them. Geauga Lake had a great and very unique coaster lineup for the time, and it could be argued that the lineup was so good that it led to the park ultimately closing. But this isn't one of those Geauga Lake videos. So let's rank the roller coasters of Geauga Lake from worst to best from someone who has actually ridden them. Thank you for joining me here at Defunct Coasters. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you get all nostalgic feeling for old and forgotten coasters. Now, let's take a ride together down memory lane as we rank the roller coasters at Geauga Lake. So let's get the three coasters I never rode out of the way first. A wild mouse named Wild Mouse, a family wooden named Little Dipper, and a Pinfari Zyklon named Cyclone, which is the only photo I could track down out of all of these coasters. All of these rides closed before 1980, well before I was born. Without photos or videos, I don't want to speculate, so I will leave them off the list altogether. Number 11, Roadrunner Express, also known as Beaverland Mine Ride. Beaverland Mine Ride is not a mine ride. There aren't any beavers either. It's a clone that was part of the mega expansion of 4 coasters in 2000. It's now operating in France and called Roller Coaster. I'm not gonna lie though, I did ride this thing more than once during its opening year, mostly for the comically long train. Number 10. Mindy Racer, also known as Headspin. I rode Mindy Racer opening year 1996, and I don't think I rode it this millennia. It towered over the park and was located at the side closest to the road, so when you went up the first hill, you had a view of the entire park and lake right out in front of you. After that, it was your standard intense boomer with above average roughness. Mindy Racer is shipped to Carowinds and operates to this day as Flying Cobras. Number 9, Serial Thriller, also known as Thunderhawk. I rode Serial Thriller its opening year 1998 and rode it for the last time sometime around 2003. This was an SLC with average roughness. For a few years, it was the largest coaster at the park. The great thing about this ride was that it looked amazing out on the lake. I also loved the color scheme and the name. I got a ride with the legendary Thriller Man for one of my rides. He had recently completed 1,000 lifetime rides on Serial Thriller earlier that day. You can still ride Thunderhawk today at Michigan's Adventure, where it's still known as Thunderhawk, and it is also built near a lake. Number 8, Corkscrew. I rode this classic Aero Corkscrew model sometime around 1993 for the first and last time. From what I remember, I was jostled around quite a bit. It was the first time my dad heard me cuss when I yelled, "Damn it!" down the first drop. It was sold to MGM Disney World in India in 1995 and still operates to this day as a roller coaster again. Corkscrew was replaced with Mindy Racer the next year. Number 7, X-Flight. I first rode X-Flight in 2001 before the general public as part of a commercial shoot because my friend won a radio contest. We hung around the X-Flight station from 7 a.m. until 3 p.m. We only ended up riding about 4 times total due to issues with the ride. It was so cool to skip school and see a behind-the-scenes view of a commercial production. It was peak doozy activities for a young high schooler. As for the ride, these Vekoma prototypes were not my favorite, and I knew that from riding it twice in a row without getting off for that commercial shoot. The parts of the ride where you weren't flying rattled my head. There are some people that love these and still do, but I would ride X-Flight maybe once a year. I can't deny how of the times X-Flight was. Everything around this time period in the late 90s and early 2000s had X in the name and was neon green and black. X-Flight was shipped out to Kings Island 1 year before the park closed and operated as Firehawk until 2018. There are only 2 prototype Vekoma Flying Dutchmans left, so you better go ride them ASAP. Number 6, Double Loop. Another classic Aero I first rode sometime around 1994, and I actually like Double Loop, especially for an old Aero looper. The first drop delivered, and there were nice pops of airtime going up into and coming down the turnaround. The loops were in a trench, making for a fun path interaction. Overall, the ride was smooth for an old Aero looper, and Six Flags put some money into it by painting it purple and giving it a tunnel. The helix was definitely jank though. Double Loop lasted till the end, getting sold for scrap after the park closed. Number 5, Raging Wolf Bob's. Raging Wolf Bob's is a Din Corporation wooden coaster with one of the greatest roller coaster names ever devised. I first rode Raging Wolf Bob's sometime around 1991 or 1992, and all I remembered about the ride back then was that it was super rough, even for a wooden coaster. However, sometime in the Six Flags era, the ride was refurbished and it delivered a fun ride at the back corner of the park in the woods. It wasn't the best wooden coaster, but if Wolf Bob's is your park's number 3 woody, you have a great lineup. If you want to ride a Din, you better be quick because there's only 4 that remain in the entire world. I do rank Wolf Bob's well ahead of Thunder Run at Kentucky Kingdom, and I do like Thunder Run. Raging Wolf Bob's lasted almost until the end for the park, closing a few months before the park shut down due to a train derailment. Number 4, Superman Ultimate Escape, also known as Steel Venom. For the time, Sue was a very intense launch coaster that was visually intimidating with the swaying spikes and holding brake. The ride ran right next to the road and underneath Mind Racer, making for a great introduction when driving up to the park. The back spike featured a brake that held riders in place. You'd slam into the shoulder restraints. You could still ride a few intimate impulse coasters around the world today, including Sue, which is still running as Possessed at Dorney Park. Number 3, Batman Night Flight, aka Dominator. I kept going back and forth on the number 2 and number 3 coasters, And I have more rides on this coaster than any in the park. I once marathoned this coaster in the snow. Batman was a signature attraction of the 2000 mega expansion, and it was one of the most photogenic coasters ever, being built right out onto the lake. The lake element actually added quite a bit to the ride experience, and was a genius idea for a floorless coaster. It seemed unreal that a coaster this large and modern for the time was at Geauga Lake. The ride was so smooth and offered a great variety of forces for a floorless coaster. You can still ride Batman Night Flight today at King's Dominion as Dominator, although I'm very sad to report it's nowhere near as good without the flying and swooping over the lake. Number 2, the Villain. I went back and forth ranking the Villain at number 2 because it was a very rough ride in most years, and the trains weren't the best. But when it was running great, it was one of the most powerful wooden coasters out there. Villain tore through its course, literally, having to be retracked multiple times in its short lifespan. The layout is similar to another CCI Woody, Ghost Rider, but the Villain ran like the boss. It was that intense. My most memorable ride on the Villain came sometime in 2003 during a rainstorm. The Villain was sadly scrapped when the park closed, long before RMC or GCI could work their magic. There are still 28 CCI wooden coasters in operation today. Number 1, Big Dipper. No surprise here, Geauga Lake's oldest coaster is also the crown jewel of the park. I can't say enough about this coaster, so I do have a defunct coaster review video dedicated to Big Dipper linked in the description below. I first rode Big Dipper sometime around 1991 with my mom as one of my first adult credits and have an enormous amount of nostalgia for this ride. The ride delivered from start to finish for first-time riders and seasoned enthusiasts. It was one of those classic wooden coasters like Phoenix or Santa Cruz Giant Dipper. The stats just have nothing to do with how fun the ride is. Big Dipper felt out of control and the airtime with buzz bars was legendary. Big Dipper is my number 5 wooden coaster behind the likes of the Voyage, Phoenix, Ghost Rider, and the Beast. I miss it dearly. Big Dipper was SBNO for nearly 10 years after the park closed, hoping to be saved. Sadly, Big Dipper was demolished in 2016 after it was deemed a hazard due to the rise of urban exploring. You can still ride about 8 John A. Miller classic coasters around the world today. So that'll do it for this video. Once again, thanks so much for joining me. I really wanted to give these coasters the proper recognition and credit that they deserve as someone who has firsthand experience riding these rides. I will forever miss Geauga Lake, and if you feel the same way that I do about old coasters, make sure to give me a follow here at Defunct Coasters. I want to know in the comments below, what was your favorite coaster at Geauga Lake? And if you have not been to Geauga Lake before, what are your top 3 that you wish you could ride today? All right, everyone, have a great one, and we'll see you next time.